Hi there, it's John Marston again, and I'm in my garden in Barnstaple in North Devon, and I'm going to talk about a couple of rhododendrons, mainly because I'm intrigued by the names that plants are given and who are these people that they're named after. So we'll have a look at a couple and I'll give you the history of the names behind the plants. The first rhododendron I want to talk about is this one, a compact bush after about 10 years. Fairly wide-spreading, but only about 1 metre tall. Absolutely covered in flowers, which are deliciously scented. This is rhododendron Harry Tagg. Now, rhododendrons are often named after posh people, Lord this and Lady that. But this one was called Harry Tagg, and I was intrigued because Harry Tagg doesn't sound posh. So I did some research. It seems that Harry Tagg worked at the Royal Botanic Garden in Edinburgh for almost all his life, which wasn't all that long because he died at the age of 59 in 1933. But remarkably enough, he was the only assistant at the Botanic Garden who had any scientific training. Seems extraordinary nowadays. Anyway, as it happens, he was there at quite a seminal time because in the 1900s to the 1920s, he was receiving plants, rhododendrons especially, from that great plant explorer George Forrest, who was sending things back from China, and he and Forrest collaborated to name these rhododendrons that were coming in thick and fast. And in fact, one of them was actually called Rhododendron Taggianum. Anyway, he became quite an expert on rhododendrons that he contributed to the 1924 Rhododendron Handbook. And incidentally, he was also a specialist in the diseases of timber, which he was consulted on. Anyway, in the 1950s at Edinburgh, they made a hybrid, which was then named after Harry Tagg. Delightful, delightful. The next rhododendron I'd like to talk about is this one. This is Rhododendron Dalhousie or Dalhousie. Now, the story behind this is slightly poignant. Susan Hay, the daughter of the 8th Marquess of Tweeddale, so posh, married the future Lord Dalhousie in 1836, had 2 daughters, but suffered from really a delicate constitution. And I think you can see that from this photograph. She looks like a delicate flower of some sort. In 1848, Lord Dalhousie was appointed Governor-General of India, and with it came the governorship of Bengal, because Calcutta was at that time the capital of India. So on board the ship to India, the Dalhousies met Sir Joseph Hooker, plain Joseph Hooker then, who was an explorer, plant collector and botanist, who later went on to become director of Kew. Anyway, he was on his way to the eastern Himalayas to collect specimens and plants, and in fact in 1848 he was probably the first of the long line of botanist collectors that we have nowadays. Anyway, they struck up a friendship, landed in India. Joseph Hooker went off to the eastern Himalayas, and the Dalhousies went to Calcutta, to the vast palace, which was the governor's residence, based on Kedleston Hall in Derbyshire, actually, an enormous Palladian residence. However, Lady Dalhousie, being of a rather delicate constitution, could not hack the climate in Calcutta, which was extremely humid and extremely hot. So she went to Ceylon, Sri Lanka, to the mountains to try and recover her health. But unfortunately this didn't work. So in 1853 she took the boat back to England, and unfortunately she became very ill on board and died at sea. She was 36. A sad tale. But in 1849 Joseph Hooker discovered the beautiful cream yellow scented rhododendron growing on an old mossy tree stump, and he thought this was the most beautiful thing he'd seen. The noblest of its race, he called it, and he remembered the lovely Lady Dalhousie who he'd met on board and named it after her. So her name lives on in this rhododendron.